Crystallized a reality. They told you to dream big, but they never told you how to silence the doubt in your head. They told you to believe in yourself, but they never showed you what belief feels like in the middle of failure, in the middle of darkness, when every voice inside you is screaming that you'll never make it. They told you to follow your purpose, but they never warned you what it costs to walk alone. The truth is your life will be shaped not by what happens to you, but by the thoughts you allow to rule you. You will either learn to control the storm within, or you will be swept away by it. This isn't just philosophy. It's the battlefield of the mind. Every empire that ever rose, every fortune that was ever built began with a single, quiet, stubborn thought. And every man who ever fell from greatness fell first in his thinking. The world doesn't need more motivation. It needs people who are mentally awake. People who have learned the true thing: if you don't command your thoughts will command you. You were born with fire, but somewhere along the way it got buried beneath expectations, buried beneath fear, buried beneath years of programming that taught you to play small. You weren't born to drift. You weren't born to be average. You weren't born to fit into someone else's story. But the mind, if left unchecked, becomes a prison. You start telling yourself lies. Hey, I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. Maybe someday. And the world is more than happy to let you live in that cage. Because average is comfortable. Average is quiet. Average doesn't shake the system. But the moment you begin to think independently, the moment you decide that you are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul, the game changes. Henry Ford once said, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." It wasn't just a clever quote. It was the blueprint of his entire empire. When every engineer told him the V8 engine was impossible, Ford didn't flinch. He simply told them, "Build it anyway." And they did. Because he understood something most people never grasp: on reality bends to the will of a disciplined mind. But here's the catch. Discipline doesn't start with routines or habits. It starts with thought. You can wake up early, hit the gym, eat clean. But if your thoughts are poisoned by fear and self-doubt, you will sabotage your own success at every turn. You have to become the gatekeeper of your mind. And that means war. A war against distraction, against comparison, against every subconscious script planted in your mind by people who didn't believe in themselves and now want you to live their limitations. It means silencing the noise, not just outside you, but within you. It means replacing "I hope" with "I will." Replacing "what if I fail" with "what if I fly." It means turning every setback into fuel, every rejection into redirection, every failure into firepower. But none of this happens until you decided that you will no longer be a slave to unconscious thought. Look around. The people who rise, the ones who defy odds, who shape history, they're not made of different DNA. They just think differently. They walk into rooms believing they belong there. Not because someone told them they do, but because they told themselves long before anyone else did. They learned what Carnegie, Edison, and Napoleon Hill all knew: the mind, properly directed, is the most powerful force in the universe. Not because it can control the world, but because it controls how you respond to it. Clarity isn't some lucky gift. It's a choice. It comes when you stop reacting and start intending. When you stop letting life happen to you and start demanding that life aligns with your vision. But vision without thought is just fantasy, and thought without control is just noise. So you must choose what you dwell on, because whatever you dwell on, you empower. Thoughts become emotions. Emotions become decisions. Decisions become habits. Habits become identity. And identity is destiny. So if you let weak thoughts stay in your mind, don't be surprised when weakness shows up in your life. But if you flood your mind with conviction, if you obsess over purpose, if you nurture belief like it's the most sacred fire you've ever held, then watch what happens. Watch how you speak. Watch how you walk. Watch how people start to treat you differently. Not because they've changed, but because you have. You're no longer asking for permission. You're no longer begging for validation. You've decided. You've claimed it. And that decision rewires everything. But let me be clear. This isn't about positive thinking. This isn't about putting on a fake smile and pretending life is perfect. No, this is about dominating the battlefield of your mind. This is about understanding that every single day you are programming your brain. With every thought, every word, every belief, you are either setting yourself free or locking yourself deeper in a cage. So what are you feeding your mind? What do you allow in when no one's watching? What stories do you tell yourself when the room is quiet and the lights are off? That's where the real work begins. That's where transformation is born. Disney didn't build an empire on logic. He built it on vision, on imagination so intense, so vivid, that the world had no choice but to catch up. But vision alone is not enough. You must have the discipline to stay faithful to that vision, even when nothing around you supports it. You must choose your thoughts with the same intensity that a warrior chooses his weapon, because life is not a game of chance. It's a game of focus. And the prize goes to those who control their attention. That's what separates the dreamers from the doors, the wanderers from the warriors. Not talent, not money, not connections. Focus. The ability to think clearly when everyone else is panicking. The ability to hold your vision in your mind like a flame, protecting it from every gust of doubt, every whisper of fear. You will be tested. You will be tempted to abandon it, to reality. But if you control your thoughts will begin to shape the world around you. And that's when the real magic begins. Because that's the secret most never discover. The mind is the root, and the world is the fruit. Change the root, and everything else follows. You don't fix your life by forcing the outside. You fix your life by mastering the inside. Thought by thought, belief by belief. That's why clarity is power. And clarity doesn't come by accident. It comes when you stop living by reaction and start living by design. You don't reality. You don't need more motivation. You need more intention. The man who wakes up with purpose in his heart is 10 times more dangerous than the man who wakes up hoping things go well. Because one is drifting, the other is driving. And the one who drives eventually reaches a destination. But how can you drive if you don't even know where you're going? That's the danger of a mind that has no direction. It becomes a magnet for distractions. Without a vision, reality, even the strongest mind will eventually serve someone else's. You'll work for another man's dream. You'll chase another man's purpose. You'll drown in the noise of other people's opinions and call it reality. But the second you decide who you are and where you're going, your thoughts begin to organize themselves like soldiers. You don't have time to waste on gossip. You don't care about fitting in. You're no longer seduced by comfort because you've seen something bigger. Purpose. Purpose sharpens the mind. It cuts through doubt. It silences distractions. When you know why you're here, the world can't pull you off course. But to walk with purpose, you must first think with purpose. You must stop feeding your mind with mental junk. Most people consume more fear in a single scroll than they do courage in an entire month. You've got to clean your mental environment. You've got to declutter the chaos, because a chaotic mind can never produce a powerful life. You can't build a skyscraper on quicksand. You need mental foundation. That's why discipline matters. Not the discipline of forcing tasks, but the deeper discipline of commanding your attention. Think about it. Every great leader, every innovator, every titan of industry, what made them legendary wasn't their resources, it was their focus. Andrew Carnegie built an empire because his mind was steel. He wasn't swayed by noise. He wasn't distracted by critics. He thought in decades, not days. He trained his mind to obey him. You want success? Train your mind. You want peace? Train your mind. You want power? Train your mind. Because here's the truth, the undisciplined mind is the most expensive liability you'll ever carry. It makes you overthink. It makes you hesitate. It keeps you reactive, fearful, addicted to comfort and allergic to growth. It fills your days with small thoughts, petty thoughts, worry thoughts. And over time, those small thoughts become your story. But if you reverse the flow, if you choose power over pity, purpose over passivity, conviction over convenience, then your thoughts begin to transform your identity. And identity is the lever that lifts the world. When you no longer try to succeed, but you believe you are success, when you no longer chase worth, but know you are worthy, when your mind is no longer a battlefield of maybe and someday, but a temple of certainty and direction, that's when the shift happens. That's when mountains move. That's when time bends. Because reality will always reflect your dominant belief, not your desire, not your wish, your dominant belief. So what do you believe right now? Not what do you say you believe. Not what do you post on social media. What do you really believe about yourself, about your potential? Because your outer life will never exceed your inner truth. This is why resilience is non-negotiable. Because the path will not be smooth. You will fail. You will get knocked down. You will doubt everything. And in those moments, the undisciplined mind runs. It panics. It quits. But the trained mind endures. The trained mind says, this is part of the process. The trained mind says, this pain has a purpose. The trained mind looks at failure and says, I will rise smarter, stronger, sharper. Thomas Edison failed over 10,000 times before creating the light bulb. And when asked how it felt to fail so many times, he said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. That's the mindset of a master. He didn't let failure define his identity. He controlled the frame. He owned the narrative. You can do the same. You can control your thoughts, or be controlled forever, because every thought is a seed. Every belief is a blueprint. And the longer you dwell on weakness, the more you'll be surrounded by it. But the moment you dwell on power begins to find you. Ideas find you. Opportunities find you. People find you. Not because you're lucky, because you've aligned your mind with what you want instead of what you fear. That's not magic. That's mental alignment. And it is the ultimate game changer, not because it makes life easy, but because it makes you ready. So don't ask for the road to be smooth. Ask for the mind to be strong. Don't pray for lighter burdens. Pray for a sharper mind, because the sharper your thoughts, the lighter your load becomes. The clearer your vision, the easier your path appears. And the stronger your beliefs, the smaller your obstacles feel. It all begins and ends in the mind. So stop outsourcing your power. Stop waiting for someone to tell you you're worthy. Stop living in mental chains built by fear, comparison, and doubt. You don't need permission. You need clarity. You don't need more time. You need direction. You don't need more luck. You need control. Because once you take control of your thoughts, you stop chasing alignment and you start creating it. That's when everything changes. You stop looking for signs, and you become the sign. You stop waiting for breakthroughs, and you become the breakthrough. Because the mind, when properly focused, doesn't just predict the future, it commands it. And yet, most people will go their whole lives never knowing this power. Why? Because controlling your mind requires sacrifice. It means giving up the luxury of blame. It means walking away from the comfort of excuses. It means standing alone in a world addicted to distractions and choosing focus anyway. But make no mistaking, the price of freedom is always paid in thought. Because slavery begins in the mind. Mental slavery is when you believe your past is your future. It's when you think your circumstances are your identity. Into reality. It's when you confuse noise with truth and comfort with peace. To reality. But true power, the kind that makes people feel your presence before you speak, comes from mastering one skill: mental sovereignty. To think clearly in a world that profits from your confusion. To hold your own beliefs, even when the crowd mocks you. To build your inner world so solid, so grounded that nothing outside can shake it. Abraham Lincoln once said, "I will prepare, and my time will come." He understood what most overlook, that inner work precedes outer success, and that the preparation he spoke of wasn't just political. It was mental, emotional, spiritual. He didn't rise because life handed him the crown. He rose because his thoughts refused to stay low. That's the standard, and anything less is mental poverty. So let me ask you now, not later, not someday. Now, are you controlling your thoughts, or are your thoughts controlling you? Because the difference between the two is the difference between existence and greatness. It's the difference between a life you tolerate and a life you design. It's the difference between surviving the world and shaping it. But shaping the world starts with shaping the day. And shaping the day starts with shaping the morning. The way you wake up determines how you speak, how you think, how you carry yourself. Most people start their day in chores. They reach for their phone before they reach for their purpose. They scroll through noise before they scroll through their vision. And they wonder why they feel lost. No, the master of the mind knows the morning is sacred into reality. It's not the time to react. It's the time to align. This is when you plant the thoughts that will govern your actions. This is when you speak into existence the identity you're becoming. Not the identity you inherited from fear, but the one you forged from fire. You don't rise by accident. You rise by ritual. Not rituals of vanity, but rituals of victory. Mindset, stillness, vision, intention, gratitude. These are not luxuries. They are weapons. Weapons against the pull of mediocrity. Weapons against the gravitational force of average thinking. Because average is not just a result. It's a state of mind. And no one is born average. Average is installed, programmed, repeated, until it becomes habit. But so is greatness. Greatness is not genetic. It's intentional. It's what happens when you reject mental laziness. When you stop living on autopilot and start thinking like a creator. Because that's what you are, a creator. Not a bystander, not a victim, not a pawn. A creator. And creators don't just react. They initiate. They don't wait for motivation. They generate momentum. They don't look for the easy path. They walk the path that builds them. And most importantly, they never surrender control of their thoughts. Not to fear, not to doubt, not to failure, because they know that one thought, properly held, can rewrite a future. One belief, properly rooted, can flip a legacy. One mental shift, owned completely, can turn a lifetime of excuses into an empire of purpose. You have that shift within you, right now, not when things are perfect, not when it's easy, now, but you must claim it. You must say, this is my mind, this is my domain, and nothing, no fear, no failure, no voice of limitation will govern it but me. That is the beginning of true power. Not power over others, but over self. And that is the rarest kind, because the man who rules himself can never be conquered. You think riches are power. They fade. You think fame is power. It flickers. But the man who owns his mind, he cannot be shaken. He moves with vision. He speaks with weight. He acts with clarity. And he inspires without effort. Not because he seeks attention, but because his very presence calls others to rise. You can be that man. You can be that woman. But you have to deciding, will you be ruled by your thoughts, or will you rise to rule them? Because the war you're fighting isn't out there. It's not in the economy. It's not in your job, your bank account, or your relationship. It's in your head, and it always has been. That quiet war between fear and faith, between hesitation and action, between two realities, self and self-command. That's the war that determines everything. And most people never win it, because most people even realize they're in a battle. They surrender their minds at the door of convenience. They hand over their thoughts to entertainment. They numb the discomfort with distraction. But distraction is the new slavery, and attention is the new currency. If they can control your attention, they own your future, but not you. Not anymore, because now you see the truth. Now you've remembered what the world wanted you to, forgetting that you were born with power, raw, unfiltered, creative, direct. But somewhere along the way, you were trained to think small, taught to conform, conditioned to doubt. Now is the time to unlearn. Now is the time to reclaim. Now is the time to rise. Because once you control your mind, you don't just change your life, you change your world. You start seeing through the lies. You stop waiting for someone else to validate you. You stop asking for permission to live fully. And you start becoming who you were born to be. No more mental begging. No more wishing someone else would fix it. No more negotiating with your lesser self. You are not here to live on your knees. You are not here to walk quietly through a life someone else designed for you. You are here to stand, with eyes wide open, spine tall, thoughts sharp, and declaring, I choose my thoughts. I shape my destiny, and I will never again hand over the keys to my kingdom, because the mind is your kingdom. And until you master it, every achievement will feel hollow. Every victory will be temporary. Every success will crumble under the weight of internal chaos. But when you own your mind, you become untouchable. The storm can rage. You remain calm. The setbacks can come. You remain steady. The noise can rise, but your signal stays strong. You stop playing the short game. You stop chasing instant gratification. You start living with patience, precision, power. You start building instead of begging, creating instead of complaining, leading instead of following. Because you know this simple truth: every empire begins as a thought, and every thought, when disciplined, becomes action, and every action, when consistent, becomes identity. And identity, that's the cornerstone of destiny. You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not your fears, your failures, or the doubts they handed you. You are potential, forged into form by focus. And that focus, that's your weapon. When you direct it with purpose, there is no force on earth that can stop you. Not time, not resistance, not even your old story. So from this moment forward, no more excuses, no more drifting, no more giving your power away to things that do not build you. You will think on purpose, speak on purpose, move on purpose. You will start each day by commanding your mind, I will not think like a victim. I will not think like a follower. I will not think small. I will think with clarity, with discipline, with vision. I will think thoughts that serve me, that empower me, that build me. Because if you don't choose your thoughts, the world will choose them for you. And the world has no interest in seeing you rise. It prefers you comfortable, distracted, tamed, silent. But your silence ends today. Your hesitation ends today. Your mental slavery ends today. This is the line in the sand. This is the hour where the old story ends and the new one begins. You are not here to survive. You are here to create, to become, to expand, to evolve. And the first step is always this: control your thoughts or be controlled forever. The choice has always been yours. Now own it.